Welcome to another deep dive. Today we're going to be talking about, well, a story that sounds like something straight out of fiction.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So, like, imagine 1969 Chicago, right?
Right.
The city's still on edge after Martin Luther King Jr.'s assassination.
Yeah. Right.
And then you've got the Black Panthers, the Young Lords, and, the Young Patriots all coming together to form, what they call the First Rainbow Coalition.
Wow, that's a lot of different groups.
But here's the thing. The Young Patriots,
Yeah.
they were known for waving the Confederate flag.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So, I mean, what brought these, like, seemingly totally opposed groups together? Like, how did that even happen?
Yeah.
And, I mean, what can we learn from their story about, bridging divides in our own time?
It's interesting because, at first glance, you've got these groups with totally different, like, ideologies and backgrounds, right?
Right.
But they somehow find common ground.
Yeah, yeah.
And to, like, really get that, I think we need to understand the social and political scene in 1969 Chicago.
Okay, so paint a picture for us. What was it like back then?
It was a city divided, right? You had all this racial tension, economic inequality.
Right.
And, Mayor Daley's shoot to kill order during the riots,
Oh.
that really shows, like, just how much unrest there was.
Oh,
It was a, like, powder keg.
yeah, okay, so things were tense. But how did these groups, like, with their different identities, even, like, come into contact with each other in the first place?
Each group had their own problems, right?
Ah.
But they all felt oppressed in some way.
Okay.
Okay. So the Black Panthers,
Yeah.
well, they were based on the Oakland chapter that formed in 1966. And they were all about protecting Black communities.
Yeah.
Protecting them from police brutality and providing essential services,
Yeah.
Like they did all sorts of things. They had free breakfast programs, health clinics, and they really stepped up for their community.
Wow, so they were really making a difference.
Absolutely.
Okay, and the Young Lords, they were doing similar stuff, right?
Exactly.
But for the Puerto Rican community.
Yeah. The Young Lords, well, they started as like a street gang, actually.
Oh, wow.
But then they turned into a political organization.
Yep.
They were led by Jose Cha Jimenez.
Okay,
They were like fighting against being displaced from Lincoln Park.
right.
And like the Panthers, they also set up childcare, healthcare, and those free food programs.
So both groups were really focused on helping their communities.
Very much so. It was about survival,
Right, yeah.
addressing those very real needs in their communities.
But then you've got the Young Patriots, white migrants from Appalachia, mainly in Uptown.
Right.
And I'm guessing their Confederate flag wasn't exactly a welcome symbol for the other groups.
Yeah, that definitely raised some eyebrows. But you
Yeah.
have to see it in context
Okay.
for the Young Patriots.
Yeah.
The flag represented their Southern heritage, but also this feeling of being alienated,
Oh, I see.
They struggled with poverty, police harassment, all sorts of discrimination.
So they felt like outsiders.
Totally.
And that flag was a way of, like, pushing back.
Exactly. It was their way of saying, hey, we're here and we're not going away.
Okay, so how did these three groups with such different backgrounds and even like conflicting symbols, how did they find common ground? It seems almost impossible.
Well, there was this one moment at a church on the north side. The
Mhm.
Young Patriots were there to talk about police brutality. And things got, like, really heated with the middle class, mostly white attendees.
Go ahead.
It was tense. But then right in the middle of it all, this Black Panther named Bob Lee, he stepped in.
Okay.
He saw the conflict, but he also saw, like, an opportunity.
Hmm.
Instead of focusing on their differences, he talked about their shared experiences.
Like what?
Poverty, oppression, being ignored by the system. He said that, look, even though they were different races and cultures, they were all going through the same struggles.
It was like, we're all in this together.
Exactly. He pointed out the things they all had in common. Rats in their homes, police brutality on their streets, no opportunities for their people.
Yeah.
His words were powerful, and they really hit home with the Young Patriots.
I bet that was incredible to see.
It was a turning point, and soon after, you started seeing pictures of Black Panthers, and get this, Confederate flag-waving Young Patriots arm in arm.
Wow.
Talk about a powerful image, right?
Absolutely.
But it wasn't just for show, this unlikely alliance. It became the foundation for the First Rainbow Coalition.
Yeah.
I mean, it was a tough time for the coalition after Hampton's assassination.
Yeah.
Can you imagine losing a leader like that?
Right.
Plus the constant fear of the government watching them, trying to break them up.
It must have been really hard on everyone involved, the coalition members themselves, but also the communities they were helping.
Absolutely.
So what happened? Did they manage to keep going at all after that?
Well, the Illinois Black Panther Party, they disbanded by 74,
Oh, wow.
but the Rainbow Coalition's impact, it went way beyond that. They planted these seeds of change that just kept growing.
Okay.
Think about it. They proved that people from different races and classes, they could come together.
Right.
And in a city as segregated as Chicago,
Yeah.
that was huge.
So even though the coalition itself didn't last, their influence lived on.
Definitely.
What'd that look like?
Well, their model of bringing people together across races and classes, it inspired future activists and politicians. Take Harold Washington, Chicago's first black mayor.
Oh, yeah.
He was elected in '83,
Wow.
and his win was a testament to the impact of the Rainbow Coalition.
Yeah.
He built on their model to create a really powerful political force.
It's amazing to think about like how those efforts had this ripple effect,
Yeah.
leading to such a huge political shift.
It is, isn't it?
Absolutely.
And it didn't stop there.
Really.
Jesse Jackson, though he wasn't part of the first Rainbow Coalition, he was inspired by their model when he formed his own National Rainbow Coalition
Wow. When was that?
in 1984.
So their ideas really had an impact.
Oh, yeah. It shows you how the ideas and strategies of that first Rainbow Coalition had this lasting impact on the whole political scene, even nationally.
It's amazing how this alliance, which didn't last that long, in Chicago, had such a wide and long-lasting effect.
Yeah.
What lessons do you think we can learn from them? Especially now, with all the political and social division we're seeing.
I think there are a few. Maybe the most important is the power of focusing on shared economic struggles.
Okay.
The Rainbow Coalition realized that poverty, lack of opportunity, being ignored by the system,
Yeah.
it affected everyone regardless of race.
Right.
By highlighting those common problems, they could overcome their differences and build this diverse coalition.
Yeah, it makes sense. When people are struggling to survive, to put food on the table, keep a roof over their heads,
Right.
they're more likely to find common ground.
Exactly. When people feel secure, they're less likely to buy into all that divisive rhetoric that
Right.
pits them against others who are also struggling.
I get it.
Yeah.
But even if you can get people to see those shared economic interests, there are still so many other things that divide us. Race, religion, political beliefs.
Right.
How do they manage to deal with all those differences?
I think that's where dialogue comes in, really trying to understand each other.
Yeah.
The Rainbow Coalition, they came from such different backgrounds,
Totally.
different histories, different experiences.
Yeah.
But they were willing to listen to each other, to talk about those tough issues,
Right.
to challenge their own assumptions.
It's like that moment with the young patriots giving up the Confederate flag.
Exactly.
That shows you how real, open conversation can lead to change.
Absolutely.
It makes you think about empathy and understanding.
Yeah.
But honestly, with everything so polarized these days, it seems almost impossible to have that kind of dialogue.
It's tough.
Like, can we even create something like the first Rainbow Coalition today?
That's the big question.
It is.
Now, we can't exactly recreate the situation from 1969 Chicago,
Right.
but the principles behind the Rainbow Coalition,
Yeah.
they're just as relevant today as they were back then.
I mean, it feels like we're at this kind of crossroads right now.
Yeah, I see what you mean.
On the one hand, we see these movements for social justice, right?
Yeah.
But then there's this pushback, this like growing division.
It's definitely a tense time.
It is. So, like, what can we learn from what happened to the Rainbow Coalition? What can help us deal with all this?
Well, their story shows us that progress, it's not always straightforward.
Right.
You know, there will be setbacks, times when it feels hopeless.
Yeah.
But we can't give up. The people trying to divide us, they want us to get discouraged, to stop caring. We
Yeah.
can't let that happen.
So how do we keep going?
Right. How do we keep fighting,
Yeah.
even when it feels like we're losing?
Yeah, because the Rainbow Coalition, they eventually disbanded, right?
They did.
So what did they teach us about creating change that lasts?
One big lesson is that we have to build coalitions that are strong, not just based on convenience, but on shared values. The Rainbow Coalition, they weren't just thrown together.
Right.
They had mutual respect, trust, and that commitment to justice.
It sounds like it's about really connecting with each other, not just using each other.
Exactly.
Seeing each other as partners, like fighting for the same thing.
Yeah, and that takes time,
Right.
It takes effort and being willing to listen to each other's experiences,
Yeah.
realizing that everyone brings something important to the table.
And that we're stronger when we work together.
Exactly.
But honestly, it can be hard to build those kinds of relationships, with everything going on in the world.
It is.
We're always getting these messages that are meant to divide us, to make us afraid of each other.
Right.
How do we get past that? How do we connect?
I think it starts with each of us being willing to step outside our comfort zone, to talk to people who are different from us, to have those hard conversations about race, class, power.
So it's not enough to just join a group or go to a protest.
Right.
We have to look at ourselves, too, our own biases.
It's about recognizing that this fight for justice, it's not just something that happens out there.
Yeah.
It's also something we have to do within ourselves.
I get it.
It's about changing, growing.
So the Rainbow Coalition's legacy, it's not just about the policies they fought for or the things they changed.
Right.
It's about how we see the world, how we treat each other.
You said it perfectly.
And that's what we have to do today, right?
Yeah.
Find that spirit of solidarity again.
Rebuild those connections.
Create a world where justice isn't just something we talk about, but something we live.
Exactly. And that brings us to our question for you.
Right, the one we always like to leave our listeners with.
Thinking about everything we've talked about today, the Rainbow Coalition, their successes, their struggles, their impact,
Yeah.
we want you to consider this. Could something like that happen today?
Could we have another Rainbow Coalition?
What would it take to create those kinds of alliances now in our world?
It's something to think about. Are we too focused on our differences, on our own problems, to see the power of coming together?
Have we forgotten those things that connect us? Those shared struggles that could unite us?
The Rainbow Coalition showed us that solidarity is possible.
It's not just a dream.
It's a choice we can make.
And it takes courage, it takes empathy, it takes standing up to the people who want to keep us apart.
But the rewards, they're huge.
They change us, they change our communities, they change the world.
So that's it for our deep dive into the first Rainbow Coalition.
Hopefully it's giving you some new ways to think about the problems we face today.
And the power we have to change things when we work together.
Remember, this fight for justice, it's a marathon.
Not a sprint.
There will be tough times, but never forget that vision of a better world.
And that power we have when we stand together.
Thanks for listening.
And until next time, keep learning, keep asking questions, and keep fighting for the world you want to see.